The people we love that are the closest to us are the ones we should be able to trust the most. This story is about a family that experiences one tragedy after the next. And it begs the question, is blood really thicker than water? And is love ever enough? Deadly Deep Dives. This video is intended for educational and documentary purposes. The content within this video contains themes that some individuals may consider triggering, offensive, or disturbing. The intent is not to disrespect viewers or any individual spoken about herein. Viewer discretion is advised. Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Kimbyrleigha. Nice to meet you if you've never been here before. This is another deep dive. As you can probably tell, this is going to be part one. I know we don't like two-parters or even three-parters. However, I didn't want to sacrifice knowing all the details just to make a shorter video. If you're here, you know how it goes. There was also a bit of a delay with this video for more than one reason. I like to be very accurate and detailed, and I had to watch hours of footage and organize the information so that I could give it to you in a way that would be easy to follow. And secondly, because an awesome brand agreed to sponsor this video, and you know how important this is to me and other true crime creators because YouTube is not our friend. So all I ask as a thank you from you to them is to give me just a minute of your time to introduce them. And if you like what I say, and if it interests you, then it helps me so very much for you to take the time, click the link in my description box, and show some love to this sponsor. But first, let me tell you about Fetch. They're sponsoring this video today, and I found out about this app from my daughter. She earns gift cards by scanning my receipts. It's actually that simple. If you buy things, even online, those purchases earn rewards with Fetch. I always think I'm not going to let those receipts go to waste, so let the paper that they use, sometimes they're very long, count towards something awesome. Fetch Rewards is super easy to use. It's a free app where you earn free rewards on literally anything you buy. Then you redeem those points for hundreds of rewards, including Amazon and Visa gift cards. I'm going to show you how to do it. It's super easy. I needed some honey today for my tea. My throat has been killing me from talking so much. And I have a receipt from Ralph's grocery store. I'm going to open the Fetch app, go to this orange camera button, and take a picture of my receipt. Then click Submit, and that's it. Fetch works with literally any retail receipt from anywhere. You can scan receipts from products, stores, restaurants that you love and already purchased from. I like it because it's fast. You can do it right from your phone. It's easy. As I showed you, it only takes a few seconds. The reward options are my favorite because they're actually from good brands and stores. My personal favorite and the one I use the most is Starbucks gift cards. A little goes a long way, and it's easy to earn a $10 gift card for just scanning the receipts that I get every week. As a matter of fact, I only have a little way to go this week before I get my next $10 reward. I need coffee to get through all of my research and writing. Oh, and let's not forget the e-receipts. You can link both your Amazon account and your email. So any receipts that are emailed to you or any purchases you make from Amazon will count. Look at all my points just for my Amazon purchases. Fetch was nice enough to give my viewers 3,000 points just for scanning your very first receipt. All you do is click the link in my description box and use the code Kimber. I'm going to put it up on the screen. And you could be doing it right now. It only takes a second. You can click the link, download it while you're watching. Thank you so much in advance for downloading the Fetch app. And thank you, Fetch, for making this video possible by sponsoring this channel. We really appreciate it. Okay, thanks so much for listening. Now it's time to get into today's case. This story begins like most other stories of its kind. An all-American family, a husband and wife, who love each other, and their two sons living in a small, close-knit community in a beautiful house, living the best life that they know how, and being seemingly happy. Of course, there are always ups and downs, but Bart and Krista Halderson seem to be the type of couple who would stay positive, work things through, and above all else, love their children and give them support, whether it be financially or otherwise. They wanted to make sure they lived their best life, but there were always struggles to overcome. Krista met Bart when they both were working at Boston store. She was a manager, Bart was a clerk. This was at Easttown Mall in Madison, Wisconsin. Bart and Krista ended up getting married on July 31st, 1994. They bought a home together at 505 West Mohawk Trail. Krista was a stay-at-home mom earlier in the marriage, taking care of their two sons, Mitchell and Chandler Halderson. The boys were only 18 months apart, so you can imagine having two young boys close to the same age running around, and Krista was a proud and patient parent. In fact, friends closest to her said she never even raised her voice to her children. Both Bart and Krista were loving parents, and they seemed to believe that giving their child the benefit of the doubt was always best and to love them unconditionally. But we'll soon find out that sometimes it's just not enough. You think you're doing all the right things in life, then something happens that you could have never planned for, would never have expected, especially from those you love, those you have brought into this world and given life to. The devastating events in this case actually just happened July 2021 to be exact, on July 4th weekend, and that's where our focus is going to be. But before I go into exactly what happened, I'd like to do what I always do and paint a picture of what was going on shortly before the horrific events unfolded. Bart and Krista Halderson were in their 50s. Bart was 50 and Krista was 53 years old. This is their home on Oak Spring Circle in a town called Windsor Village in DeForest, Wisconsin. From what I could gather online from real estate websites, it looks like they purchased this home in 2016. The boys were born in Dane County, which is the county that all of this occurred in. But between about 3rd and 4th grade, the family moved up to Plymouth, Wisconsin. During the current time frame, Bart, Krista, and their youngest son, Chandler, 23 at the time, lived in the home in the village of Windsor. In addition to this nice home, the Haldersons inherited a cabin from Krista's father, a log cabin that Krista's dad built himself, and it's located in this beautiful rural community. The family would take trips to the cabin a few times a year. Bart would make sure that things are in working condition, and because of its age, he would have to make trips there to fix things like the plumbing or keep up the yard around the property. The cabin is about 2.5 to 3 hours away. Now I wanted to show you what this area looks like. It's a pretty small area, small town, not very built up, lots of green on the map. And their cabin was located in an area called the Village of White Lake. Here's the city's website with all the events, and there's not many. But we're talking about July 4th weekend. And on Saturday, July 3rd, 2021, there was a White Lake Independence Day celebration. On the Chamber of Commerce website, it says, White Lake Area Independence Day Parade, July 3rd, 2021, at 10 a.m. till 11 a.m. Join us for the White Lake Area July Parade. The parade route travels from White Lake City Hall to downtown with over 100 entries you won't want to miss. I was under the impression that this might have been something the Haldersons had done in the past on 4th of July weekends. Sometimes the parade would fall on the 4th of July, and then other years it wouldn't, since it's always on the first Saturday of July. In 2021, it fell on Saturday, July 3rd. It does look really beautiful to visit this place. Look at all the gorgeous photos. There's lots of things to do in this small little town. So I could see why this would be the perfect place to get away. It seems like the Haldersons have the best of everything, including some of the best friends, whether that be coworkers from either one of their jobs or families that they had known for years. Bart worked for a company called BDO USA. He was a senior accountant. BDO USA is an accounting and tax advisory firm. At the time, like many other people, Bart was working from home since 2020. He had his office set up in the house, and you can see it right here. He worked from his home office on a daily basis. This is his computer. This is his whole workspace. His focus was mainly helping small businesses with their finances, and Bart took his job very seriously. Here's Bart Halderson's LinkedIn. He is the tax managing director of BDO USA, and you can see that all the way back on September 1993, he worked in a financial position in several different companies. He had been working for BDO for 7 years. I also wanted to take note of his achievements. When it comes to education, he attended the University of Wisconsin, where he received his undergraduate degree. Then he went on to get his BBA accounting degree from Wisconsin School of Business. He also had 2 certifications, which are Certified Public Accountant and Assessor Level 2. Bart was very educated, and he expected his children to follow his lead. He was someone who maintained a very steady and stable career. A lot of parents do want that for their children. They don't want their children to ever have to worry. Bart took care of his family. He provided for his wife, who was a stay-at-home mom most of their marriage. But Krista had recently decided to go back to work. She worked at a car dealership called Zimbrick Incorporated. A friend of the family named Mike actually got her the job. She too took her job very seriously. When children get older and they have lives of their own, some parents decide to go back to work so that they can have a social life again and a purpose. And that's what Krista did. She really wanted to have something going on. She was very social. She liked having a lot of friends. Krista worked as a customer service representative, and considering the way her friends described her as very patient and kind and loving, I could definitely see why she would be really good at this, especially de-escalating situations. So I'd say Krista was very well suited for this job. Krista's supervisor's name was Curtis Van Pelt, and he described her as very kind. She was very genuine. Krista was very empathetic, and she went out of her way to help customers. And over the last 2 years that she was there, they had many compliments about how amazing Krista was. People she helped would seek out her supervisor just so they could give Krista a compliment. She was a team player. She wanted to be an outstanding and responsible employee. For example, there were only 3 people that worked in her immediate department: her, Dan, and Curtis. When any of them needed a day off, they had to make sure that no one else had the same day off. That being said, Krista would ask for vacation days well in advance of whatever she had going on, especially like something like 4th of July weekend. That would have been planned way far in advance. Krista was so organized. She had already requested all of her days off for the whole year in advance, from January to December. If Krista had an emergency or something going on and she knew she couldn't make it to work on time, especially if she was going to be completely absent, she would simply text Curtis and let him know in advance. That was who Krista was. 1707 North Stoughton Road in Madison, Wisconsin, approximately 13 minutes away from the Haldersons' home. Krista was a regular at a local convenience store called Quick Trip. She usually went there to get a sandwich on her lunch break and then bring it back to eat it with her coworkers in their break room. Everyone enjoyed Krista's company. Let's go back to the children, Mitchell and Chandler Halderson. Mitchell was 24. He had a job with a company called Epic Systems as a technical service representative. He had been engaged to a woman named Caitlin for a little over a year at the time, and they were living in a house together. Even though Mitchell and Chandler were close in age, they didn't seem to be that close as brothers. I wouldn't say they didn't have a relationship together. However, Mitchell seemed to be moving on into adulthood, following in his father's footsteps, college educated, working hard to establish his career, beginning to settle down and possibly start a family of his own soon. Chandler, on the other hand, seemed to still be in that in-between phase where you're going to college, you're dating, you're hanging out with friends, and still relying on your parents until you figure out what you're going to do next. Nothing wrong with that at all. A lot of us go through it. Some people don't know the direction that they want to go in. Chandler was smart. He understood computers. He wanted to work in computer engineering. He was attending classes at Milwaukee Area Technical College in Wisconsin. The school is abbreviated as MATC. According to its website, it says it's a public 2-year vocational technical college. But at the time in 2021, as this was all playing out, it seems as though Chandler was taking a little bit longer to graduate. Not uncommon. He'd been taking classes for around 3 years. Everyone knew how passionate Chandler was about his studies. He would talk about his classes all the time, especially in solar paneling and renewable resource engineering. He was currently finishing up his last few classes online while living at home with his parents and dating his girlfriend, Catherine Melender. Everyone calls her Cat. Chandler had recently landed a paid internship with an insurance company called American Family located in Madison, Wisconsin, and he was scheduled to graduate in June of 2021. Everything seemed to be working out pretty well for both Chandler and Mitchell. Chandler was currently looking for a job that he could start right after he graduated. He and Cat had been together for just over about 2 years at the time, and she was a loving, beautiful, smart, and dedicated girlfriend. I think she is so pretty. She's of Mexican descent and she loved her culture. She and her mother participated in the traditional Mexican dance at the Ballet Folklorico. Her mother was the director of the company. I believe they would also host these dances. Kat's mother is Dulce Melender. Speaking of looks, Chandler is pretty hot. And maybe he's not your type, but I think in terms of what the average woman his age thinks is attractive, he had it. He's got the great hair, blue eyes, cute baby face. You get it. Kat and Chandler together were a very good-looking couple. They were in love. They had plans for their future together. Kat was a pharmacy technician. She was also in college and planned to attend pharmacy school to ultimately become a pharmacist. They had began dating in August 2019. One of their friends introduced them. Considering they were younger at the time, Chandler had just started college. He was only 20 and she was about 18. Kat and Chandler love dogs. They both have 2 of their own. Chandler had Izzy and Rizzo, and Kat had Chewbacca and Muffin. When Kat and Chandler met, he actually had a job as a dog sitter. A lot of times they would play with Chandler's dogs, which they referred to as the girls. They would play frisbee with them, and it was one of their favorite things to do. Kat was part of the student senate and enjoyed acting. She was in theater. The couple really enjoyed each other's company. They went on a lot of dates, whether it was dinners or going to the movies or having Netflix and chill nights. They even enjoyed exploring nature together and going on walks. Sometimes they would go to Sauk City, where there was this place that you could swim during the summer with your friends. I think it's really important to understand what Kat and Chandler were like. Their relationship will be one of the most important aspects in this story. Kat was the person closest to Chandler. I remember what it was like dating in my 20s, but times have changed. Technology has changed. People their age communicate in more ways than I did growing up, that's for sure. I had pagers, I had AOL Messenger, phones, passing notes to boys in class as forms of everyday communication, but young people these days have so much more. Kat and Chandler talked on the phone, they texted, chatted through Snapchat messages, and used FaceTime on a regular basis. I use all of those things too now. It's just very different having so many modes of communication. It can get overwhelming. You start a conversation here, you finish it there, and no matter where you are online, it seems like you're never really that far away from anyone who wants to talk to you. And you can easily keep tabs on everyone or anyone. It's hard to hide what you're doing these days or where you are. This could make relationships easier or harder, depending on the trust level. And I will tell you that Kat did check up on Chandler. They even tracked each other's location using Snapchat. There's a map that will pop up as soon as you open the app. It will show you your friends on the map if they share their location with you in the app settings. I share mine with my friends and my family, but no one else. Kat definitely had her suspicions here and there, especially when Chandler would say he was grounded. Yes, grounded in his 20s. But he was still living under his parents' roof, and even as children get older, parents still consider them children. Kat worried that Chandler might be lying about where he was sometimes, so she would text him and say, "Show face," which meant, show me your face right now, right here, right now, on FaceTime or Messenger, something, so that I can see where you are, which is pretty smart. And it wasn't always because she thought he was doing something deceitful. Sometimes they just missed each other and they truly wanted to see each other's faces. She would also check the Snap map. She really wanted to know his location. There could be hundreds of texts between them in one day. Kat would also text Chandler's mom, Krista. She knew the Haldersons really well. They were very close. She would spend holidays with them. They would do game nights. Sometimes Mitchell would come over with his fiance and they would play games together. And Kat also had a very close relationship with Bart as well. Kat loved to cook, and Bart would help. He would give her tips on cooking and sometimes fishing tips because that's something he really liked to do. She would spend a lot of nights hanging out and playing Mario Kart with Bart. Kat would text Krista quite often. They would talk about everything from life to their pets to what Chandler and Kat were doing together. Just a nice, close relationship. Cat loved to cook the Haldersons her Mexican dinners from her culture, so she would share those recipes with Krista. They were even planning a girls' trip to Disneyland together. She loved how Krista would keep the house stocked with so many things that it made it easy and fun to come up with meals or anything you would like to make. The Haldersons had 2 big freezers in their basement. One was a big ice chest, and it had everything from ice cream to veggies to salmon, and Chandler loved salmon. He cooked the most delicious salmon dinners for his family and for Kat's mom. The only thing that Chandler and Cat would sometimes get annoyed with was the ice situation, because the refrigerator didn't make ice cubes, so they would routinely have to bring home bags of ice to keep in the freezer. Chandler also loves soda. I do too. And he always needed ice to enjoy it. You can tell how fun it was being at the Haldersons' home, and Cat was very comfortable there. Jumping to the present time, as much as it sounds fun, Chandler and Cat were getting older. It was time to start lives of their own. It was especially important for Cat to be with a man who had a career and a stable future. She knew that Chandler cared about that. They had a lot of talks about their plans together. It wasn't so much that Cat would put pressure on Chandler. She wasn't expecting him to have a lot of money or anything extraordinary. But since she was a hardworking woman herself, with a job on track to continue to be successful, she would expect her partner to be doing the same. She was really involved with his work. He would show her things he was working on at his internship, and this internship was required for him to graduate. The great thing was, it was a paid internship. Kat didn't have a problem with money, but since Chandler didn't have a job yet, his parents would give him money. But Kat ended up still footing the bill for practically anything that they did together, with Chandler promising to take over the expenses once he landed a job. In a recent project that Chandler was working on, he showed Kat how he was helping map out solar panels for a client's home. And this was so intriguing to her. She was truly interested in learning more about what he did. He was just so good at it. He told her how his bosses were impressed with him, how he would make sure the plans would align correctly so the solar panels wouldn't get hit by the sun in a certain way, so they wouldn't be hazardous for cars driving on the highway and blind them while they're driving. Kat was really proud of him. He was a catch. If I was a young 20-year-old girl, I think I would find him very charming, attractive, coming from a good family, with lots of things going for him. I mean, shit, he was even assisting the Madison Police Department every summer as part of their scuba diving team. They were responsible for search and rescue missions. They would work in tandem with the Department of Natural Resources, DNR, to locate items related to cases or even missing people that could be located in bodies of water around Wisconsin. Oh, and Chandler had some very interesting stories to tell, from finding knives underwater to seeing dead bodies, which always made him feel very uncomfortable. Sometimes he would bring home souvenirs from the water, one of which was an adult sex toy. Okay, I guess we can forget about bobbing for apples. Have you tried diving for Never mind, but why would you bring that home? I don't know. Maybe he thought it was funny, because I kind of do. It was hard on Kat sometimes because he would be on call and he'd have to leave or wasn't available to hang out on certain days. And not only that, something else relating to his work was becoming frustrating for Chandler. Something happened that they couldn't quite resolve with the American family. Chandler wasn't getting paid. He wasn't getting the money he was promised. And it was frustrating because he was doing all of this work. It's stressful and very confusing as to why this company couldn't get their crap together and figure out why his compensation was delayed. It seemed to be one problem after the next. I'm sure you can relate to being very frustrated. First, they sent his initial check to the wrong address and they had to cancel it. Then it turned out that the payroll department hadn't set up his position correctly in the computer. Since it was this paid internship, I don't know, got the codes wrong. They couldn't pay him as a normal employee. They explained it has to go through a separate payroll company. Chandler wasn't in dire straits. His parents were there to help him, but they also wanted to get to the bottom of it, especially since this was a paid internship and it was about to come to an end, and they owed him a few months' worth of money. Bart, working in the world of finance, was trying to offer his assistance. Chandler would forward the emails from American Family to Bart's email address so that he could attempt to figure out how to resolve the issue. Bart still had a full-time job that he had to pay attention to, including phone calls with clients and business meetings, but he was doing his very best to offer solutions to his son. Meanwhile, Chandler was focused on applying for jobs, and he had his sights set on one company in particular, SpaceX. Not the one here in California, but the one in Florida, Titusville to be exact. He applied for a position that had requirements that met the qualifications he had. It was an exciting time. Everyone was waiting to find out whether he was going to get this job. When I say everyone, mostly Cat and her mom, Dulce. Chandler seemed to share a little bit more with Kat's family rather than his own. He was very close to Kat's mom. After all, they had been dating a while, and it seemed like Kat's mom would be the one that Chandler would confide in. It could have been easier to talk to Kat's mom instead of his own mom and dad, maybe because they wouldn't be so open about his career or what he would choose to pursue. Parents can be like that, and Krista was described as somewhat of a helicopter parent. She would be in constant contact with both of her sons, texting on a regular basis and somewhat babying Chandler. Even telling him things like she would come home from work if he needed her to help him speak with his school or American family. At 23 years old, he should be able to do that stuff himself. She still made sure to nurture her relationship with Chandler because no matter how old he was still her baby. Here are a few text messages to show you the dynamic between Chandler and his mom. Back at the end of June, she said, "Good night, Chandler. I love you." To which he responded, "Good night." On June 24th, still dealing with the HR issues at American Family, he sent her this text. "HR rep and me are having to attend a board meeting online this afternoon. Our meeting will be online around lunch. I do not have to leave." I'm judging here, but his grammar is atrocious. And I know these are just text messages, so I'm definitely letting it slide, but I see this in a lot of his conversations. It's a common theme. Krista responds saying, "Have dad coach you and have him in the wings to help you. Please let him support you, or I will come home so I can." As you see, this is what I'm mentioning. Yes, it's normal for parents to help, but on the other hand, it's important for Chandler to be an adult and deal with these things himself. Chandler says, "Sounds good." Then Krista asked if he would like her to come home. This is a Thursday, while Krista is at work. Sometimes Krista would text things like this just to let Chandler know she cared. Speaking of which, on June 30th, as she was leaving for work, Chandler merely waved goodbye as she was driving away, and she texted, "Thank you for waving. You made my day." And she put a happy face with 4 exclamation points. You can see how much she loves Chandler. She cares. Even that little gesture mattered to her. He responds with "no problem," to which she says, "Love you lots," again with the 4 exclamation points. Despite us seeing these texts, we don't always know the whole story. We're seeing a snapshot of life in the Haldersons' household. Because to the contrary, it really did seem like Dulce was under the impression that Chandler's mom and dad were maybe a little too hard on him or difficult for Chandler to please. However, this was an impression she got from Chandler himself. Dulce was always there to step in and give him advice whenever he needed it. She was a lot more open-minded. She had a son of her own named James, as well as a partner that she was dating named Crescent Lasai. We will be referring to Kat's partner as Cress. Cress had a lot of wisdom to provide to Chandler. Cress would talk Chandler through struggles that he was having with work or school. Cress would also be there to help him whenever he had a question about what he should do going forward in his career or if he had something standing in his way of moving forward. There was that closeness that you tend to have with friends or maybe people you consider family because you're dating someone close to them. Cress lived on a beautiful farm that their father owned in Cottage Grove. They called him Papa. He was in his 90s. Here they are hunting together. They made it into a publication because of Papa's age. He was in his 90s and still hunting and enjoying it. Cress's brother Mike, who was wheelchair-bound, and Papa lived on the farm with Cress. Cat, Chandler, and Dulce spent a lot of time on the farm together. It was really beautiful. I'm going to show it to you here. You can see how much land is around this property. They have a pool and a lot of beautiful wildflowers and just these vast foresty areas. It was the beginning of summer 2021 around May. Chandler was awaiting the correspondence from SpaceX to see if he would land an interview. Specifically on May 23rd, he sends a text to Kat saying he had a really good feeling about SpaceX, even though he spells SpaceX with EX at the end. We're going to see a lot of texts between Cat and Chandler, and I'm going to put them up on the screen, but I will also make sure to read them out loud for those of you who are not going to watch and only listen. Cat lets him know that she's proud of him. There's a sense of pride that Chandler has. He wants to please the people around him. He wants to make sure that he's always looked at in a good light as a very hard worker. I don't know if I would necessarily call this trying to impress people, but he definitely had a need to be doing something that made people think he was doing something important. He replied back to Cat with thanks. I hope I get a job. The job he was talking about from SpaceX paid $80,000 a year, and it meant freedom for Cat and Chandler. It meant that they were going to pick up and move, not only to another city, but another state, which of course, Dulce was a little bit concerned about. Any mother is going to be concerned about her daughter. However, she trusted Chandler, and he was expecting to hear back from SpaceX that day, and it turns out he did. Chandler ends up landing an interview, which is a really big deal. I mean, this is an amazing place to work. Everyone was so proud of him. But one of the things Chandler was worried about was the fact that he had to get all the paperwork from school, as well as American Family, into SpaceX to show his GPA, that he was indeed graduating, things like that. It was exciting as much as it was stressful for Kat, who was waiting to find out what was going to happen next. In the meanwhile, she was already looking for places they could stay in Titusville, mostly homes that they could rent or eventually purchase. She got more and more excited as she would show Chandler these homes, and I can relate to that. I think most of us can. It might seem a little unrealistic in my point of view that these 20-somethings are looking at homes for around $700,000 with 5 bedrooms and 6 bathrooms. But it does say that the estimated rent payment would be $3,000 a month, so maybe it's not unrealistic. I don't know. And if you look at the screen here, they're on FaceTime together. That's Chandler. But the focus here is the fact that they are looking at nice homes together. Kat was also looking at pharmacy schools that she could attend in Titusville. But something unexpected is going to happen, and I don't mean that in a positive way. No. Even though the next thing is a good one, horrific events are getting closer to unfolding. Chandler had his interview the next day, the very next day on the 24th of May, and he lets Kat know the good news. The interview went well. Now he has a follow-up interview for SpaceX the next day on May 25th. So it's becoming a reality. He's possibly getting closer to landing this amazing job. I mean, I want that job. Bye, YouTube. The next day, May 25th, Kat didn't want to bother Chandler. She knew he had a lot going on, but she wanted to text him because she was wanting to know what happened. She wants to know all about his interview. So she just texts, "Tell me." He texted back, "Sorry, shoot, I got the job." That's mind-blowing. I'm sure this was super exciting. The job he wants, his own money. It's great. It sounds amazing. It's all happening so fast. Chandler even lets her know that his training was next week over the computer, and then he was going to leave June 11th and officially start on June 14th in Florida. This sounds like such a fast turnaround. It makes my head spin thinking about it. I've never even heard of a company telling someone to move that fast. And if so, they usually pay for your move and everything you need. You're getting moved by the company or you're moving yourself. It is very stressful. And this is happening to 2 young individuals that don't have much life experience. So you can just imagine the pressure and the stress that may have been building trying to get all of this stuff together so quickly. But it's still a happy time. Guess who was really excited for Chandler? Kat's mom. She wanted the best for Kat. This was a very important time in their lives. She decides to take Chandler out for lunch to celebrate, and it wasn't anything fancy. She wanted to congratulate him. She wanted to talk to him about the move. She probably wanted to know if there was anything that she could do to make things easier. Things like, what's your plan for the future? What are you guys going to do? How is this all going to work out? And what they agreed upon is that he would go first because it was easier for him to pack up and leave, but Kat would have to stay until her lease was up. Then she would move with him to Florida, which made sense. This was still kind of spur of the moment, even though they had potentially known that it could happen. This plan sounds pretty feasible, probably more realistic than her having to pick up her life out of nowhere. But of course, there's stress being far away from each other too. So Kat really wanted to spend as much time with Chandler as she could before he left in just a couple weeks. He tells her via text that he will even send her money every week when he's away so that she won't have to worry about anything until her lease was up and she was back with him. Chandler also makes a promise to her that he will come back every other weekend to see her. He lets her know that all of this will be great if she's sure that she wants to be with him for the long run, and if not, then she probably shouldn't move. Kat assures him she wants to be with him. Things are really coming together. Or are they? Now, they say that bad things happen in threes. There's a proverb that says, if an unfortunate event has already occurred twice, a third unfortunate event is likely to occur. Chandler's mom finds out she has skin cancer and it's bad. She's a redhead with green eyes and fair skin, and she's dealt with this for a while. She knew she was susceptible, but now she had an official diagnosis. This was so hard on her and the rest of her family as well. She had to be on strong medications in an attempt to eradicate the cancer. If that wasn't bad enough, they had another curveball thrown their way just a week or so later. Chandler's brother Mitchell gets ill days before Chandler is set to move to Florida. Mitch just wasn't feeling that well. He wasn't feeling like himself, and with everything going on in 2020, he was concerned about his health. He hadn't been checked out in a while, so he schedules his doctor appointment, and he wanted to get some blood work done. That's when he was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and not only that, they had to hospitalize him. Bart and Krista were so concerned, especially Krista. She was beside herself. Perhaps she was on edge because of her own diagnosis, but she just seemed to be overly concerned. She told her best friend she felt helpless. She cried to her. She said, I just don't know what to do. And she hoped that everything would turn out all right. Chandler can't imagine going away right now while his only sibling is sick in the hospital, so he informed SpaceX and let them know what was going on. SpaceX says you can continue to work from home as you await the news on your brother's condition. Mitch is in the hospital for a few days until around June 15th. His parents hardly left his side. Krista was doting on him and making sure he had everything and anything he needed. Chandler didn't have a super close relationship with Mitchell. Of course, they did spend holidays together and they grew up together, but at this time in life, they hung out mostly playing online video games. Generally, the common first-person shooting games, and Chandler, being Chandler, and having that common love for games, he brought a gift to the hospital for Mitchell. It was a really unique looking bullet with the words, "Get well soon," written on it. The bullet is from one of the Russian-style guns used in a game that they loved playing together. It might seem odd. I understand. To some of us, it is very odd, but that was their connection. I said bad things happen in threes. Chandler could have been under a lot of pressure, and maybe he wasn't feeling okay, but just a few days after Mitch fell ill, something happens to Chandler. What is going on with this poor family? Is it bad luck? Is it a curse? I don't know. Bart is working in his home office when he hears this loud bang from upstairs. He runs up there to see what happens, and he finds Chandler on the ground next to the staircase, unable to move. Poor Chandler has this terrible fall. He was running after the dog, and either she got up under his legs and he tripped, or he slipped while he was going up the stairs too fast. And it doesn't matter how it happened, and everyone is really concerned. Poor Krista is now dealing with 2 children, both of her children, that are in the hospital. It seems like Chandler's fall was really bad because of the fact he hit his head. Brain injuries can lead to even more damage and sometimes very severe damage. Chandler starts to realize he probably can't leave for SpaceX. He comes home from the hospital wearing a neck brace. He had a concussion. He needs additional imaging as well as other procedures at a follow-up with a specialist so that they can determine how bad his injuries really are. In the meanwhile, he needs to rest. He cannot overexert himself. He's already having trouble walking because of the numbness and tingling in both of his legs. He has to relay all of this to his family as well as Kat and her mom. It's so tragic. All of this happening right when he's starting his training for his dream job. That's enough to make someone go crazy. The 2 women who love him most in life, Krista and Kat, were both extremely worried. Kat was there to listen to Chandler talk about his feelings in addition to all the pain he was in. He was defeated. His body was weak, he had major sensitivity to light, he had severe headaches, he was having trouble doing everyday tasks. Chandler would get extremely lightheaded and have to lie down. It sounds scary. He was also worried about his new apartment. He had told Kat all about it and he already put down the security deposit. It was perfect. It was in Titusville and he showed it to Kat. It wasn't an expensive home or anything like that. It was an apartment, but perfect for them. 2 bedrooms. It also had a little dog park so they could play with Kat's dog Chewbacca, which they planned to bring with them to Florida. I hate to say it, but there's more bad news. Chandler tells Kat the doctor informed him he was not cleared to drive or fly, at least until they could run more tests on him. Once again, he's forced to notify SpaceX of his situation. He had a couple follow-up appointments in the next 2 weeks. SpaceX said they would allow him to extend his home training until he received more information on his conditions, but apparently, Chandler explained that they don't know how long they can just hold this position open since they were trying to fill it quickly. They're trying to get moving on projects as well as putting a team together. By Father's Day, June 20th, both the Halderson boys were there to celebrate with Bart. Here's a picture of them. Chandler wearing his neck brace. And another picture he sent to Kat. And she's probably thinking, what a cutie pie. It's so sad that he has to go through all this. And you know what? He still looks like he's got swagger even with his neck brace. Kat is desperately searching Greyhound bus routes and schedules, hoping that Chandler can take one to Florida, considering he can't drive on his own or get on a plane. She does all the research and she provides Chandler with the information, including prices. But he seems to not like this idea as well as complain about everything, especially the prices. This was mostly because he has to tell Kat the reality of his situation. He's not getting any better. He's dreading his next doctor's appointment in the first week of July. They have to know for sure whether some of this stuff would be permanent or not. SpaceX was getting closer to being forced to end his contract before it even officially began. He was still in the probationary training period, and they needed to know what was going on with his health. On top of everything else, Chandler was in a very depressed mood, maybe not dealing with full-blown depression, but it just seemed like one thing after another thing was happening to him. However, they did have something to look forward to, July 4th weekend, because now they could be together and spend time together. Kat wasn't planning on it since Chandler was set to move, but now they could. Meanwhile, Bart is desperately trying to resolve another issue that Chandler was having. Not only was he not getting paid from American Family, but his school, MATC, was withholding his diploma. Now that he was trying to get this job with SpaceX, it was more important than ever to have all of his ducks in a row. They'd actually been dealing with issues regarding MATC for over a year, and Bart had enough. He was going to get to the bottom of it no matter what. Chandler had been forwarding him numerous emails from different student resource counselors, and Bart thought each one of them must be incompetent. It was just back and forth scheduling Zoom meetings, and then they would get canceled because they were short-staffed due to the pandemic. It was a mess, and by the end of June, it was really coming to a head. Bart felt like he needed to step in. There was definitely tension surrounding this issue. Finally, Bart tells Chandler he spoke to someone from the school and they were finally going to figure things out.
Hi. I'm trying to get an appointment scheduled to meet with somebody to mainly just get a copy of the transcript and also a printed copy of a certificate that was earned and other degree verification.
You have to pay the balance first. Then you can obtain whatever you want to obtain.
Can I schedule a time to actually come in there and pay all that and resolve everything at one time?
Yeah, the payment center is open, yes. You can come in. Somebody will be there.
Is there a person there, an office I can go to and have them do it?
Yeah, someone can walk you through. They can show you how to obtain it. But like I said, the balance have to be taken care of first.
Yes, I understand that part. Do I need an appointment, or is it a place you can just go at your Truex field to get that?
You can go to the main campus. We open Monday through Friday now. So you can walk there, and then someone can help you.
Okay, that should do it then. Okay, thank you for your help.
All right, you're welcome.
Bart lets him know he scheduled a meeting for July 1st. Bart and Chandler would head down to the school in person and sort things out together. Such a nice dad. So helpful. June 30th comes around and something happens that puts even more stress on Chandler and Kat's relationship. Chandler gets grounded. Yeah, right before the holiday weekend, and Kat is pissed. She wants to know what he could have done wrong this time. He hasn't even been out that much. Kat texts him that it's getting to the point where she wants to reach out to his mom directly. He says it's fine and that will only piss his parents off more. He just lets her know that regardless of what's going on in this moment, the weekend is going to be great for them. Everything's going to work out. As long as he just goes along with what his family wants and doesn't fight being grounded, they're going to have a great weekend together. One of the reasons they figured they would get to spend the weekend together is because Chandler had told Kat that his mom and dad were planning on going up to their cabin. There might have been some contemplation about whether Chandler and Kat were going to go with them, but ultimately she asked, "We're not going to the cabin, right?" Because they had a phone call regarding their plans, and Chandler texts her back and says no. When those plans are canceled for whatever reason, Kat says, "You know what? I'll ask if we can go to the farm so that they'll have something fun to do." Kat said going over to the farm will be great because he could tell Krista that Dulce would help whenever he needed to be cared for. Krista won't have to worry since the farm has a lot of stuff they use for Mike and Papa. What this is referring to is that there's a lot of geriatric things that Cress uses for her dad that are present at the farm that they could potentially use if Chandler is in pain or to accommodate him, so on and so forth. This would make Krista feel better about leaving Chandler back home so he could be with Kat. Krista was already concerned and making sure he was okay when she was just at work. She was having neighbors and friends bringing him food. She would make him food herself and leave it in the fridge for him. That way he didn't have to go out of his way to cook. Just normal things that a caring mom does for her kid. Kat knew that the fact that Chandler kept telling her that his legs were feeling heavy and tingling, he was having trouble walking. They were getting ready to assist him with a walker at the farm. And even one of those bars that go over the toilet so that you don't have to put as much pressure on your body when you're getting up and sitting down going to the bathroom. Now, wait a minute. Truth be told, Kat didn't really think that Chandler was going to need all these things. We know she actually just wants to see him. And Krista, being overly protective of her child, needs to know that he's going to be okay. So what she wanted to do was make Krista believe that in case there was anything that was going to go on with Chandler, that they'd be able to take care of him. Little did they know that the very next day was going to be life-changing. If it wasn't bad enough that all of these things were occurring, what happens next is unbelievable. And that's why I wanted to talk about this case in the first place. Remember I told you that Kat and Chandler used various methods of communication and mentioned Snapchat? Well, we will be looking at messages from there as well. Chandler had a nickname Chaz. His Snapchat name was Chazzle Dazzle. I don't know how much you know about Snapchat, but it's pretty much known for its feature, which includes the fact that messages disappear within 24 hours. Now, there are options these days where you can keep them for longer and things like that. But generally speaking, this is an app where couples will share maybe things that they wouldn't normally want people to see. And we're not going to be looking at any of those. The only messages that you're going to see between Chandler and Kat are going to be ones that they saved, because we sometimes do that. There might be something funny that was said. Maybe there were certain pictures sent, and we want to keep a memory of those things. Because they saved these messages, we know exactly what was going on this fateful weekend. I explained earlier that another reason why people like using Snapchat, me included, is you can track someone's location. If I was in danger, or if you wanted to know what I was doing, I share my location with those close to me. And Kat and Chandler did the same. On July 1st, at 7 o'clock in the morning, 7:11 to be exact, Chandler sends a snap message to Kat. He wants to know how Kat slept that night, and she says, "Fine." And he says, "I hardly slept." I think that's to be expected. Things have been rough. He might have been up all night contemplating his future. We get to know a little bit more about the way he was feeling because he says, "I don't know, stuff hasn't been going well for me lately, so I'm trying to plan for the next thing to fuck me over." Kat is being the supportive girlfriend. She's like, "It's gonna be okay." He responds with, "I had a great future planned and it's falling apart." But he's getting a little insecure at this point, which honestly I think is totally natural. He says, "Will you leave me even if it doesn't work out?" He says, worded badly, but you understand. Like, do you want to still be with me if this SpaceX thing falls through and I'm just the boy you met 2.5 years ago with nothing else to offer? He's got this beautiful girlfriend who he wants to impress. He wants to give her a good life, so understandably, you would be worried. She reassures him once again, saying, no, I wouldn't leave. He said, I won't stop trying. So they're making a commitment. He's going to keep going. He's going to try to be successful despite the accident, despite his brother being sick, despite his mom finding out about skin cancer. From Kat's perspective, it seems like he's trying his best to get his life together. Kat goes on to say, Florida would be dope and like nice, but I'm not dating you for money. Love you tons. I mean, when they met, it's not like he was rolling in the dough. They love each other. They've gotten to know each other. They're attached to one another. So again, reassuring girlfriend, letting him know, we're going to be okay. It's not like his parents are throwing him out on the street or there's some kind of fear that he's going to die. It's just, hey, there's a setback. Kat has to be at work in the morning. She's got priorities. By 8 o'clock, she's already headed to the office. At around 1 o'clock in the afternoon, Kat lets Chandler know that her mom said yes. Her mom's letting them come over for the whole weekend. So she tells Chandler, try to convince your parents. Remember the reason why they're even trying to convince his parents? It's because he was grounded. She wants him to try his best to convince his mom he's going to be just fine, not going to the cabin with them, but staying with Kat. And he lets her know that he overheard his parents saying they might go to the cabin with their friends, but he wasn't sure yet. Kat gets out of work at about 5 p.m. Once she's home, she's FaceTiming Chandler while they're in the shower. And you can see he's in the only shower that's working in his home that I showed you earlier. So we know Chandler's home. This is just placing him there. It's just important to know where everyone is when things start to unfold. This was Thursday. They didn't plan to hang out that night because Kat worked during the weekdays. But they always kept in communication, and that night, Chandler just seemed in somewhat of a sad mood. Later, around 6 p.m., he texts, "Baby, I need you." They got on the phone and continued to have a conversation. And Chandler let her know that he's just sitting in his house, playing with the dogs, getting ready for dinner, and that his parents, or at least one of them, was out doing a grocery pickup, just a normal night. The next day, Friday, July 2nd, Kat has to work again. Around 9 a.m., they start texting about their plans for that night. Kat thinks that Chandler's parents were scheduled to be out of town. Therefore, her plans were to get out of work, stop by Target for her grocery pickup, go back to her apartment, then stop by her mom's house, and then head over to Chandler's. And she was excited. She hadn't seen him in 2 weeks, 2 whole weeks. At 9:30 in the morning, as they're planning for their day, Chandler texts her and says, well, you don't need to rush tonight because I have a ton of chores that they're making me do. And he's talking about his parents, that they're expecting him to clean the house while they're gone, I suppose. The couple continues to text about their plans, and Chandler says, we could do dinner tonight, and then you can come over in the morning again and stay till Sunday night. Kat didn't like this. She didn't understand why he wouldn't just let her spend the night. It seemed odd. It made her a little curious. Some people might be under the impression that their partner is cheating. If his parents are not in town and he hasn't seen her in 2 weeks and he has the house to himself, what would be the point of her leaving and coming back the very next morning? Kat felt disappointed, especially because he says, like dinner plus the sex. So essentially he wants to eat, he wants to have sex, and then he wants her to leave, to drive all the way back to her place and then turn around the next morning and drive back to his place. Oh, I wouldn't blame her for thinking something was up, so she questions it. She's like, why leave and come back if I'm just going to stay? He says, so I can get some chores done. I'm assuming that when his parents left for their trip, they told him he needs to clean the house because, I don't know, he's supposed to be grounded. Who knows? They proceed to talk about dinner and food and what they might have for the weekend, and Chandler says they're all set. But he asked her if she could pick up some ice. I told you, and Kat knows, he really likes soda and that the fridge doesn't make ice. So they probably ran out as usual, or maybe it was for his foot. His foot. What do I mean? Well, the next text message says, and now hydrogen peroxide because I just stepped on glass. He adds, but for real, if your mom has an extra bottle, that would be great. and a Swiffer wet jet. And Kat says that they have both. Once Kat leaves for work, she stops at Target to get her groceries like many of us do. She doesn't go inside. She just goes to the curbside pickup. They bring out your bags to the car. It's very convenient. She actually had to go to 2 Targets, but we won't really get into that. It's just that she needed to order them at separate Targets because one of them didn't have a watermelon and she needed things at both. So she goes to the first one around 5:30 and then she goes to the second one around 6:37. Then she heads to her house to grab the things that she needs and then to her mom's to pick up the hydrogen peroxide and the Swiffer. Kat arrives at Chandler's. She carries everything inside, and right when she walks in the door, she can't help but notice that there's this smoky smell throughout the entire house. Yes, there are 2 fireplaces, but it's July. It's a little bit weird. She's been there many times, and this was different, so she asked him why it smells like that. Right away, without hesitation, he tells her what happened, and that's related to his foot. How is it related to his foot? I'm going to tell you. He's playing with his dog, Rizzo. She's a border collie. And he's throwing the ball all around the house. He throws it across the room downstairs, the one that has the TV and the fireplace right here. When the dog ran after it, she jumps and she crashes right into the glass panel on the fireplace, causing it to shatter into probably 1 million pieces of sharp glass all over the floor, everywhere. He's got trouble walking. He doesn't have his balance that he normally has. And when he's attempting to go over there and clean it up, he steps on a big piece of glass and it goes right into his toe. That would hurt, which is why he needed cleaning supplies. He had most, if not all, of the glass up at that point, but he just wanted to make sure his cut was sanitized, I guess. They make burgers that night, and Chandler ends up telling Kat that he burned his hand on the grill while he's cooking. These things just keep happening. It's a good thing they have the ice bags. He's clumsy. He's got all these ailments. He has this head injury. He's out of whack. That night, Chandler also made this cute little bed out of 2 love chairs, and he called it a fort. He wanted to be able to get to the bathroom faster with all of his ailments. He also wanted to be with the dogs because they were so anxious. There were people already setting fireworks off for that weekend. And if you have dogs, you know how that can be. And he also wanted to watch TV on a bigger screen than the one he had in his bedroom. So this is where he tells Kat they would be sleeping that night. And she had never done this before. But even though it wasn't the most comfortable situation, she understood Chandler's situation. So of course she went along with it. The next morning, Saturday, July 3rd, Kat had to leave around 6:45. They kind of went their separate ways. Kat had plans to go to her mom's to see her little dogs, Chewbacca and Muffin. And then she was going to actually hang out with her brother James and maybe watch the fireworks with him. Chandler was stuck doing his chores again. Kat did offer to help because she knew he was in pain. And he even mentioned it, saying, I'm in pain and I basically have to do all these chores for my parents while my body is sore. She tells him she could have helped him while she was there that morning. But I guess some people just don't want to ask for help. And then he tells her, oh, I gotta go. I gotta take things to the dump. So she's like, are you gonna be loading the car by yourself? Because you can barely walk. She was kind of annoyed that he didn't ask for her help. Minutes later, he says, oh, don't worry about it. The dump is closed. And she reminds him, yeah, it's a holiday weekend. It worried Kat when she wasn't getting any responses from Chandler. She thought something may have happened to him. She knew he had just exerted himself and he wasn't supposed to be doing that. So around about 8 o'clock in the morning, she texts him asking, are you okay? That's what a girlfriend does. She gets worried. He wasn't answering her text messages and it had been a long time since he said anything. With the head injury and everything that was happening, she was worried that he might have just passed out somewhere and there would be no one to help him. On the other hand, with all the time that had gone by, she was questioning whether he was telling her the truth. Maybe he was spending time with another girl this holiday as well. He wasn't responding to her messages, so this compelled Kat to open up the Snap map and check his location. And he was somewhere out of place, somewhere they had been on a few occasions. Remember I told you that they would go swimming together during the summer? Well, she sees Chandler around that location near the Wisconsin River, where they usually go swimming. And it was about a 30-minute drive from Chandler's house. Who's he there with? Another girl? Look, there he is on the map. He's in the exact spot they usually go. So Kat takes a screenshot because she's going to question him about it. There were a few times during this weekend and the weeks leading up to it where she felt like he was making excuses not to see her. She couldn't help but think he's probably cheating. So she asked him, "What are you doing there?" Chandler said he kind of didn't want her to know where he was or what he was doing because he was embarrassed. He didn't want to disappoint her because he was picking up CBD oil for his pain and he was just passing through there. But this area is not close by. It seems like a little bit out of the way to be picking up CBD that you could easily order off Amazon, or you could pick up close by, because I found this dispensary 13 minutes away from his house called LR1 CBD. And I was able to find a handful of dispensaries that were close to DeForest. According to what he said about his doctor's orders, he wasn't supposed to be driving. Kat calls him and they talk about it. She was satisfied with his story, so she let it go. That night, Kat went to her mom's and waited for her brother to arrive. They planned to go watch the fireworks together, and while they waited, Chandler did stop by and they have dinner together. They watched some TV until James got there. She noticed how tired Chandler was and she was concerned about him because, like we know, he has got all these things happening with his head, with everything. He seemed really exhausted. Then Chandler left. Kat went to watch the fireworks with James without Chandler. She spent the night at her mom's that night. You're probably wondering why Chandler didn't go. And it's because he had to get back to the dogs. They would go crazy over the fireworks, and my dogs do this too. It's really sad. He also had a lot more chores to get done. The next day, on July 4th, their plan was to go over to the farm for the afternoon. It was going to be Kat, her brother James, his friend, and Chandler. They were going to be meeting up with the residents, Cress, her dad, and Dulce. There's all sorts of things to do there. They took a nature walk. They couldn't go far since Chandler had a hard time walking, but they did take a stroll around the property, which I'm going to show you. This is what the property looks like. Very beautiful, very vast. There's a big shed or like a barn area here. Lots of what I was calling foresty areas. The house is really pretty. It's very well kept. And of course, they have this nice little backyard with a deck and everyone's favorite, the pool. They had dinner. They visited with farm animals. They took a dip in the pool. Then they left to go to a friend, Dan's house. Dan was actually one of Krista's current coworkers. I mentioned him in the beginning. Dan had never hung out with Chandler alone. He usually came over to hang out with Bart and Krista, but he knew Chandler. So when he asked Dan what he was doing that weekend, Dan kindly invited Chandler over to set off some fireworks. After they were done at Dan's, they head back to Chandler's. And the poor dogs are having such a hard time that night, so no one could sleep because of the fireworks. The older dog fell down the stairs and Chandler had to get on the floor to be with her and just comforting her. So that night, they did not sleep downstairs on the couches because Kat could not take it. Her back was hurting really bad. Therefore, they have this really restless night where Chandler has to go back and forth between the bedroom and downstairs with the dogs, so they didn't get much sleep. The next morning was Monday, July 5th. Kat got up early and went to work. Chandler had let Kat know he had an appointment that day for another medical evaluation. However, Kat wanted to make sure that he got there safely, so she said, "Please text me when you get to the doctor's office." This was about 1:30 in the afternoon. Once he arrived, though, he told her he did not have good reception and he didn't even have Wi-Fi. Also makes this excuse that he can't even load his Snapchat, meaning she won't be able to see his location. But he had already given it to her. She knew where he was supposed to be. It's this medical center here that I'm showing you. He did tell her, though, that he could still get her iMessage even if he didn't have Wi-Fi. But these things bothered Kat because these type of medical facilities have Wi-Fi, and she knows because she works in the medical field. She confronts him about that and says, "That's weird. They all have Wi-Fi." She's suspicious. As you can imagine, he's been acting a bit shady. I don't blame her for wondering what is going on. It did not make sense to her. In her experience, she knew that there was reception in Madison. She tried to give him the benefit of the doubt and said, "Maybe it's your carrier." If you know iPhone, the messages were not coming in green, which typically happens if you don't have good service. Instead, the messages kept coming in blue, but as duplicates, which sometimes does happen when you don't have good service because it's trying to send, but they usually go green on an iPhone when that happens. She's thinking he could be purposely sending these iMessages twice to fool her. which is really going out of your way to conceal something. At this point, she's smart. She says, "Let me see face." Remember, this means that she wants him to FaceTime or Snapchat, smart thing to do when you don't trust someone. He says, I have my CT scan. Kinda sus. They're texting back and forth after his CT scan, and he said they didn't determine what was wrong yet and he has to wait. Kat was telling him that she thought he could have whiplash of some kind. This may have made him feel like his pain wasn't being taken seriously, and she was just trying to encourage him that everything is going to be okay. Chandler says he's worried, and then he goes silent. She keeps texting, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" And there's no response. Later, he says, "Oh, sorry." And she repeated, "Are you okay?" He tells her he needs to get some advice from Cress, who had always been there to give him wisdom. He explains he wants to go to the farm, maybe take a swim, get his mind off of everything. He tells Kat he's going to call up Cress, and he does. Cress doesn't answer, and so he leaves a message. And we have that message, so let's listen.
Monday, 4:25 p.m.
Hi, Chris. This is Chandler. I just got back with some pretty terrible news from my doctor, so I was wondering if I could come by. Take a couple laps to the pool or hang out. Something. I'm not having the most ideal day, I suppose. So call me back, 920-838-4549. Thank you. Bye.
I don't know about you, but I feel like he really does sound lost. He sounds broken, sad, depressive. I don't know. It makes me feel bad for him. To me, he's young, he's confused, and he's just out of sorts. Then he calls Kat, and they talk on the phone while he's driving out to the farm. He's coming unannounced, and he had never been to the farm alone without Kat. Now, there's something important to note. Cress and Dulce were very private people. Some people didn't even know that they were together. They had a very private relationship. They liked their space and didn't really appreciate uninvited visitors. Kat knows this, and she lets her mom know that Chandler is headed over there, and Dulce is pretty upset. The reason was because Cress enjoyed being topless. No big deal. Cress liked to be in the pool without a top on. However, it would be quite embarrassing if Chandler walked up without notice and Cress was put in that position. Chandler got some really bad news that day. SpaceX said they had to let him go. It ended before it even really got started, and it was devastating for Chandler. Kat found out. She was very supportive, as she could be. He's injured. He's sad. Things aren't going his way. Kat asked, "What happened? Why did they let you go?" He said that after his accident, he started making mistakes during training. SpaceX told him, "We're going to have to let you go because this isn't the standard and the expectations we had." Chandler gives Kat even more bad news. He got his results back. He's going to have lifelong numbness in his legs. He may never be able to walk. He found out he might even have to have a colostomy bag, and if you're not familiar, it's a bag that's attached to your body and it collects poo. This is a lot. This is a lot for Kat to take in. It's a lot for Chandler to realize it's happening to him. It's life-altering. Meanwhile, Dulce is rushing over to intercept Chandler. When she gets there, he's already there. He's outside the door talking to Cress. Everything's fine. This potential crisis was averted, but they had no idea the tragedy that's about to come to light. Dulce and Cress were very supportive of Chandler. They wanted to do whatever they could to help. They told him they would think of some options. Maybe he could do some work for Cress. Maybe he could live in the duplex, another unit where Kat lived, and pay really low rent just until he could get back on his feet. He could even use one of their cars. Dulce was upset, though. She was upset with Krista. She felt like Chandler's mom should not be out of town. She should be there for these appointments, or at the very least, supporting her son, helping him, stepping in. Dulce had never met Chandler's mom or his dad. She'd only really known them from what she heard from Kat and Chandler. He mentioned his parents wouldn't help. Instead, they would probably be mad at him for everything that was going on, and Cress didn't understand that. Why would parents be mad at him for being injured and not able to work? Her impression of them was a little bit different than the impression that Krista and Bart's friends had about the couple. I think Kat's mom saw them as a little bit more overbearing. They definitely had different parenting styles. After their talk, Chandler tells them he's going to take a dip in the pool. It's really hot outside. The water is also good for his legs. About 30 to 40 minutes later, Cress and Dulce wanted to go check on him. This is a kid that could potentially be in a very dark place. He could harm himself, or because of his injuries, he could get into an accident in the pool and then they'll be held responsible. Once they got down to the pool, they did not see Chandler and they got worried. The land is vast. They didn't want him to get lost or hurt out there, and finally they spot his car. It's in the distance. Dulce notices that the back hatch was open, and she doesn't know what's going on. She thinks, okay, he might be napping, or he might be doing some substances. And if he's doing substances, they're going to have a problem, because she doesn't agree with that. Why else would he be away from them in his car with it open like that? But they want to give him the benefit of the doubt. He's gone through a lot. Maybe he is napping. He's been very exhausted. They had noticed it before. He could be enjoying the sounds of nature, letting the breeze come through, and relaxing by himself, thinking of what he wants to do next. I'll show you an aerial of this property right here. This is where his car was. It's not his car, it's his parents' car. It was right here, backed up in this spot with the hatch facing the wooded area. Later, while they were cooling off in the pool, they see Chandler coming back toward their way. Cress has no top on. So to avoid Chandler seeing anything, Cress turns around and sort of covers. Chandler doesn't even seem to notice. He's just wandering in somewhat of a dazed state. His eyes were glazed over. Cress even says, "Hey, I'm not dressed." And he doesn't even stop. When Chandler gets close to the pool, Dulce says, "You can't come in right now." She doesn't want him in there. She doesn't want him to get the shock of his life. Those were her words. It was awkward. And he didn't listen. He gets right in, not saying a word. Instead of turning towards Cress, though, he does turn toward where his car was parked with his back facing them. And then he just begins to, rub himself or splash himself with water. He wasn't swimming. He had no shirt on, though, just shorts. And he was sort of rubbing his body, like almost washing himself. Afterward, he just stared through them into the distance, like very stoic. Now, there was something else to be worried about. Krista and Bart. It was Monday, and they still were not back from the cabin. As a matter of fact, people that the Haldersons were close to started to worry days ago, on Friday to be exact, before the holiday weekend. Chandler had said his parents mentioned the cabin on Thursday night during dinner. His dad told him to grab some pipe fixing tools, gasoline, folding chairs, and other items so that they could do an emergency repair to the plumbing at the cabin. Chandler figured they're going to go fix the cabin and then they're going to hang out there for the holiday weekend. He sent a text to his mom back on July 4th at around 11:41, and it said, "Hoping this goes through. I bet there's a lot of people there making it hard to message." After a while, she responds, "Made it safely. Can't get anything through. And yes, it's packed. Going to White Lake today for the parade. We'll be home Monday night, Tuesday early. Love you lots," with 2 exclamation points. That was the only time that he had heard from them the entire weekend. It's true, reception isn't great over at the cabin, but over the last couple years, it's definitely improved. And they'd always been able to text just fine. He just figured they would be back the next day, so he went about his night as usual. By Tuesday, July 6th, Kat asked Chandler if his parents were home yet. When Chandler said no, Kat said, "You should probably text Mitchell and see if anyone's heard from them." Kat knew that Krista would text really often, so it was highly unusual that she didn't text all weekend, especially when they're out of town, and the last text message being all the way back on the 4th of July. Kat's getting concerned. She thinks maybe they should get Mitch involved in trying to figure out why his parents aren't home yet. They have jobs. Kat knows that. Kat's been with Chandler when his parents would be away from him, whether it was just a couple days when Chandler's hanging out with Kat, and she knows the routine. She knows that Krista always kept in touch with both of her sons, especially during a trip away. And on top of that, while Chandler is dealing with these new ailments, Kat also thought it was unusual that Krista wasn't texting her either and asking if Chandler was okay. Considering I told you, Kat was concerned that Krista wouldn't even trust Chandler going over there and spending time alone without her there to take care of him. It wasn't unusual for Krista to text multiple times in one day, sending pictures, asking how Kat and Chandler were doing. If she was away and went to a parade, especially if she's going to an event, Kat thought she would be sending them pictures and updating them on her trip, and none of that was happening. She would have certainly sent pictures of the cabin or the lake. That night, even though Kat was worried and they hadn't heard from Chandler's parents, they had the traditional night with Kat's mom that they usually do on Tuesdays, and that is they go to Buffalo Wild Wings. They have a special where it's buy one, get one free. So this was a tradition that they did all the time, and it was no different on July 6th. Going into Wednesday, the 7th, Chandler's parents are nowhere to be found. Everyone is starting to worry. When I say everyone, Krista has coworkers, Bart's friends, Mitch. Everyone seems to be worried except for Chandler. So this is going to start to raise some red flags. Another kind of peculiar thing is that Chandler had tried to go to the farm a couple days in a row, Wednesday being one of them. He had never gone to the farm by himself before that day that he showed up unexpectedly. This was so out of character. It didn't make sense. Your parents are missing at this point. Yes, we can go as far as saying they're missing. No one can get a hold of them. They're not showing up for work, which I'm going to talk about in just a minute. Though he's trying to go to the farm again, for what? It did not make any sense. Kat's assuming it's because of his pain. He mentioned the pool makes him feel better. He needs to get in the pool. That's most likely what everyone was thinking because this was something new. This was something that Chandler hadn't been doing before, but I guess it makes sense considering everything we know about what's going on. While he's, I guess, on the way to the farm, not looking for his parents, he tells Kat that he feels weird. She wants to know why. He says he's just really stressed. This was the day that he finally decided he was going to the police. I thought this was interesting, so I'm going to mention it, and asks her if he can borrow $5 for chips and a soda, to which she responds, I don't have $5. And this is around 11:30 in the morning. Kat knew that Krista had a very important appointment for her cancer that day, and there's no way that she would have missed that. This is why Chandler is going to the police. I want to go back now because there's something really important. We've been talking about Chandler and Kat and their experience with realizing that Krista and Bart hadn't been keeping in touch. But there were other individuals who had been trying to figure out what was going on and have been worried about the Haldersons well before July 7th. I think it's really important for us to backtrack to hear about what had been going on in regard to other people in the Haldersons' life and what they were doing in addition to what their suspicions might have been. We need to see the whole picture. Let's start with Krista's coworkers and supervisor. As I explained to you in the beginning, Krista was very serious about her job. She worked alongside a body shop estimator named Dan. He is the coworker that I talked about earlier when I said that there were only 3 of them that worked together in the same department. Remember, they would have to coordinate their days off to make sure they weren't overlapping. I don't know if you remember this, you probably do, but Krista requested all of her days off in advance from January all the way to December. And guess what? You probably already know, she did not request July 4th weekend. Dan was in the middle of closing on a home, so he was already taking that whole weekend off. The fact that Krista didn't alert anyone that she was going to be leaving for the weekend was very unusual. Dan was the first person to notice. Not only was Dan one of Krista's coworkers, he was also one of her friends. This is the same Dan I talked about when I told you Chandler was invited over for the 4th of July fireworks. Same Dan. How did he get invited over? You're going to find out right now. Dan was close to Krista and Bart. They hung out together. He would come over to the house and he knew Chandler just because he was around when he was visiting Krista and Bart. Krista was at work on Thursday. We know that. She was at the Quick Trip buying lunch. There's actually surveillance from the store. I'm going to show it to you here. That's Krista. You can see her. She goes up to the counter. She pays. The problem is the next day, Friday, July 2nd, Krista was a no-show, no-call. When Krista didn't show up, other coworkers were questioning it because both of them were out of the office at the same time, Dan and Krista. They tried calling her and no one picked up. Then they tried Dan, thinking maybe they'd agreed to something or they had their dates wrong, but Dan hasn't heard from her either. Dan's busy closing on his house, but then he gets another message at 2:30. Yet another coworker is asking if Krista had contacted anyone yet because she wasn't answering anyone's calls or text messages. When Dan was done, it was around 4:45. Him and his girlfriend decided they were going to just drive over to the Haldersons' residence. Dan knew that Krista had just been diagnosed with cancer. He knew that things hadn't been the best health-wise with both of her sons. He was concerned that something could have happened, that there was an emergency going on, and as a friend and a coworker, Dan took it upon himself to go check it out. When he got there, he knocked on the door a few times and nobody answered, so he decides to look inside the home from the front door window. Nothing. He went to the garage door to look inside the window and he sees both of the cars were there. He turns around and he notices that Chandler had just come out of the side door near the garage. Chandler closes the door behind him, doesn't invite Dan inside. Instead, they talk outside. Dan noticed that Chandler's hair was wet, like he just got out of the shower, and Dan asks him, "What's going on? Have you heard or seen your parents?" Chandler lets him know the same thing he had already told everyone else. But Dan wanted to know why the cars were in the garage. Chandler simply explained the same story he's been telling everyone. The pipe repair, emergency, unknown couple, all of that. Dan noticed something else about Chandler. His foot. He had a bandage around it, so Dan asked about it. He explains the same thing. The dog, the ball, the whole situation. But then he emphasizes that there was blood everywhere. From a cut on your toe. I don't know. A part of me thinks it looks kind of deep. There could have been glass stuck in it. It just doesn't appear to be something that would be profusely bleeding to the point where there would be blood everywhere. I don't imagine that being the situation. Chandler decides to get Dan's phone number to keep him informed if he hears back from Krista, and everything seemed to make sense at that point, so Dan and his girlfriend left. But he does contact Chandler on Saturday just to see if there had been any news. Chandler says no, but it's really hard for them to get coverage over there when there's cloud cover. At this point, Chandler kind of like invited himself over to Dan's because he asked Dan if he was doing anything that day. Chandler says he's bored and just wants to hang out. This man has never hung out with Chandler alone, but he's being kind. So he says, "You can come over." His girlfriend is going to be there. They're going to let off fireworks. Cat can come. And this is what they end up doing. I'm sure you remember that night. Chandler texts Dan on Monday, though, the 5th, and tells him his mom and dad are going to be gone another day. He wants to see if Dan could request an additional day off for Krista. He hasn't heard from his parents since July 4th, but somehow he knows his mom needs an additional day off. On July 6th, Dan calls again to follow up because Krista's cancer appointment. She was really looking forward to it, and it was very important. Chandler let him know if his mom misses her appointment, he will go to the police and file a missing persons report. Dan was really worried because he had texted Krista. He had talked to her while she was at the cabin on many previous occasions, so he had no problem getting through. People are wondering if this couple even made it to the cabin. Were they in a car accident? What was going on? Dan also told Chandler, if Krista doesn't call in, she's going to lose her job. There are some things that don't really make sense to friends of Bart and Krista, like the fact that they would be fixing plumbing, but having a friend come pick them up when they have all these tools to bring with them. A bin of tools. Seems kind of fishy because they have both of their vehicles that are in complete working condition. They don't usually have people pick them up, especially a couple that no one knows about. Now there was something else that was kind of odd, and that is Bart had put in a work order for the air conditioning at the home, and he had done this well before July 4th weekend. It was scheduled for noon on July 7th. Around 11:45 that day, the air conditioning repairman shows up to do the estimate. He knocks, nobody answers. He wasn't sure if he was a little bit early and Bart wasn't there yet, so he just gets back into his vehicle and waits. That's when he sees a car pull up into the driveway. Chandler gets out of the car. The men start talking, exchanging information so that Chandler understands why the repairman is on the property. Chandler just comes out and says, I had to file a police report because my parents are missing. The repairman says, okay, well, should we reschedule? Like, whoa, this is shocking. Chandler's acting nonchalant. He says, no, that's fine. Let's just go ahead with Dad's appointment as planned. As they're starting to enter the home, though, the dogs ran out, and Chandler he's like, oh my gosh, my dogs, I forgot. So at this point, they decided they're just going to reschedule it. It seems like this is a very bad time. Lots of things going on. Krista had a best friend named Jane Hilgendorf. She's married to Mike Hilgendorf. They've both known Krista since middle school. Jane was her best friend for 39 years. She was like a sister to Krista, so much so their children called them aunt and uncle. They spoke on a regular basis, considered themselves family, and the Hilgendorfs had twins within the same week that Bart and Krista had Mitchell. So they were all around the same age and they grew up together as cousins. Jane's husband, Mike, is the one I told you found the job for Krista because he works at the same company. Of course, coworkers reached out to him like they had done with others on Friday when she was a no-show. They called him pretty late in the day and he picks up, and Jane, who immediately thinks it's very odd, calls a number of times in a row. She calls Krista straight to voicemail. Same thing with Bart. She calls Mitchell right away asking, where's your mom? Mitchell says, what do you mean? She's at work. Jane explains, no, she didn't show up. So now she's calling Chandler to figure it out. Meanwhile, she's also texting Krista over and over again saying things like, where are you? Why didn't you go to work today? What's going on? When she talks to Chandler, she's a little bit aggressive because she doesn't understand why he doesn't know exactly where Krista was going, who she was going with. Krista is very detail-oriented. She doesn't just go places with people without letting her children or somebody know. And Jane knows Krista would have told her that she was going to the cabin. One reason for that is because Jane and Mike were also going to their cabin, so they would have had that in common that weekend. And for Krista to have her phone off like that was very odd. If at some point Krista wouldn't answer someone's call, she would call them back right away. Another really strange thing that Chandler tells her is that they loaded up on booze and took a bunch of money from the safe before they left. And he suggested maybe they went gambling. Maybe they're just like out drinking, some kind of weird bender, even though they don't really drink a lot, and spending money. No, because Bart would maybe have one beer. If at any time they went out, Krista had maybe one drink. So that just struck Jane as very odd, especially when he mentions a bunch of money. They were frugal. The fact that Bart is a CPA, he doesn't just carelessly spend money. This is exactly why their house was basically unfinished, because they had to stay within their budget. They had to do one room at a time. That's why some look good and some look bad. That Friday, Jane kept calling and calling and calling. She was still not able to get a hold of her. As I said, they were heading up to their own cabin for a 2-week vacation, so she had to switch her focus onto her family, at least until she found out more. Finally, Chandler texts her, and he lets her know Krista texted him. This was July 4th. They're there safely. They're going to be staying at the cabin, going to the parade. Fine. However, Jane gets really concerned when Wednesday comes around. Chandler calls her and says, oh yeah, they haven't come home yet. What should I do? She says, you need to call the police in White Lake and have them go do a wellness check. He says, okay. A couple hours later, she calls him back and she says, did you do it? He's like, no, I couldn't find the number. What? This tech-savvy dude doesn't know how to Google a police station? What? This is when Jane and Mike decide to drive over to the Haldersons' cabin and check for themselves. This was 88 miles away from their own cabin. That's how worried they were. When they pull up and they look at the area, they figure out that no one has been there. She calls Chandler and tells him, you need to file a missing persons report. She wasn't able to reconcile the fact that Chandler said they were fine and that they were at the cabin going to a parade, when it's clear they never even made it to the cabin. She was under the impression that maybe they stayed somewhere else. She didn't know. She's just trying to figure this out. But funny enough, Jane didn't have any problem calling Chandler. She had service on her phone. She was at the exact same cabin that Chandler keeps telling everyone doesn't have good reception, and Jane is making phone calls just fine. They knew no one had been there. There was a big log across the driveway, overgrown weeds, and this is when things get weird. When Jane tells Chandler his parents are not at the cabin, he pressed Jane for more information and asked, if they were sure, do you see anything like shotgun shells or blood anywhere? What? This is so odd. So they hang up with Chandler, and Mike just feels this pit in his stomach. He thought something was wrong, and he couldn't really pinpoint what it was, but he was just really worried. They left and drove 2 hours back to their own cabin, and then later they get a call from a detective because at this point, Chandler had reported his parents missing. They cannot relax. It's too much. They pack everything up and they drive all the way back home the same day. That evening, Jane sends her twin daughters, Haley and Hannah, over to the Haldersons with groceries for Chandler. Hearing how completely frantic her mother was when she was explaining that Krista was missing, the first thing that Haley did was drive to her parents' home from where she lived in Milwaukee. Haley and Hannah wanted to make sure that Chandler was okay. They wanted to help him with food and comfort him because her family knew that Krista would do the same thing for them. And when the twins arrived, there was a number of detectives over there. Chandler comes to the door. He doesn't even do the usual greeting. They've known each other their whole lives. They're family, yet he felt cold. Chandler just gives her like this informal side hug, and it just really stuck with her. Something just felt off. Haley and Hannah waited until the detectives left. That's when they started to talk to Chandler. They're just sitting at a table, discussing things, asking him how he was doing, and then something struck Haley as odd. He says, I'm hanging in there, but then all of a sudden, the subject just changes, and he talks about the fact that the detectives had asked him for his text messages, and he lets the girls know that they don't need to hand over their phones. No. You can just take pictures of your text messages or screenshots and give those to the police. It's as if he is telling them not to cooperate with the police. And normally, if your parents were missing, you would be trying to give every bit of information or get every bit of information you possibly can to figure out what's going on. So the fact that he was kind of deterring them from giving the police their phones was suspicious, at the very least. She also realized that he was supposed to be wearing a neck brace, or that's what she thought from what she had heard from what had happened in the accident, and he wasn't wearing one. It turns out the Haldersons' neighbor, Pam, the one right next door, who was also a former co-worker of Krista's that she had known for many years, had found out through Krista how bad Chandler's condition was after the accident. This was at the end of June, and Krista was worried. She asked Pam if she would be around some of the days that Krista would be at work, just in case Chandler needed anything. Pam said, of course. However, what was interesting is that Krista never informed Pam that she was going to be out of town. She knew if Krista was going to leave, just like all of her other friends, she would have definitely been worried about Chandler, just like she was on normal days when she was merely working 13 minutes away from the house. Pam, someone right next door that Chandler knew, who could have seen a car pull out or help him to figure out what happened or assist him in any way with anything while he was injured, and he never once reached out to her. Kind of unusual. Peculiar that she never even got a message about his parents being missing. Wouldn't you be calling everyone right away? I don't know, maybe not. His parents said, they'd be home Monday or Tuesday. Back to July 7th, when Chandler walks into the Dane County Police Station to report his parents missing, they take the report and then they send out a missing persons alert. That's when the investigation begins. When alerts like this go out, they spread really quickly, especially between friends of the Haldersons or people in the community. It wasn't long before there were Facebook posts, even true crime groups on Facebook trying to locate the couple. Social media solves cases these days. Web sleuths can either expand or impede the search for missing people. But many times, the larger the net you cast, the more information you receive from witnesses, and this begins to happen. Meanwhile, investigators meet Chandler at the Haldersons' home, where they conduct an informal interview, and they do a preliminary search of the property, including taking photos and video. That is how we have all of this footage. There were more than 15,000 photos taken in this case. This was also when the twins came over. One thing they did take note of were the sheets that were over these chairs in the living room. They didn't notice anything that looked like a crime had occurred or that there had been foul play. Chandler told the police The same story he had told everyone else. He told police his mother left a note, which they found on the table with Pam's phone number in case he needed anything, as well as his insurance cards for his upcoming doctor's appointment on the 5th. He tells officers he has a brain hemorrhage from a fall, and his mom was concerned about leaving him home alone. Meanwhile, he's not even wearing a neck brace anymore. That night, neighbors made dinner for Chandler at their home. However, the owner of the house, Mary, she was a good friend of Bart and Krista's. She was alone with Chandler before her husband got home, and during the conversation with him about his parents, she got this really disgusting and unsettling feeling in her stomach, so much so, she left the dinner table and went into the kitchen just to separate herself from Chandler, just a bit, to have at least a wall between them. She noticed his mood was flat. He seemed not to care too much about his parents. He cared more about the dogs being locked up in the garage when the police were searching the house than he did about his parents being missing. He had more emotion when talking about the dogs. When Mary's husband came back, she felt so much better, but there was just this fear in her. Mary brought up in a reassuring way, "Don't worry, the police are going to track your parents' phones. They're going to find them." Chandler just flat out says no, they can't do that, and has this flat affect. She also talked about American Family. She wanted to know how that was going, and isn't it going to be exciting when you finally get paid that large amount of money that they owed you? And again, he's like, no, that's not happening. Just very negative. She didn't believe anything he was saying. Before he left, he told her about the cut on his toe, and she works in the medical field. She said the cut was fine. It's small, it's not a big deal. But what she did notice is he had a full range of motion in his back and his neck. He's no longer wearing his neck brace, and he's bending over. Seems like there's nothing wrong with him. By July 8th, news stations are picking up the case. Local Channel 3000 did a write-up, which is on my screen right now, and NBC 15 did an interview with Chandler, but he refused to be on camera. I'm not going to play the entire clip, but I do want to show an example of his demeanor and the information he provided to the media.
Just, tell me what you're aware so far, kind of leading up to, what we talked about, I guess, like explain, you were talking to your parents about going on vacation and stuff.
They told me Thursday they'd be going for the cabin for the weekend with their friends. After that, really we just packed up their stuff. They were going to do some minor repairs on the cabin, and we got them tools, just regular going to the cabin stuff, I suppose, and they went with their friends. But I didn't ask who their friends were, so I'm still not really sure.
And you said that the ones that you talked to them about, those friends, you weren't exactly sure who they were?
Well, at the time, I figured it was just the people I'm aware of currently, just their close friends. So I didn't really bother asking another question, like who they were exactly. Other than that, that was kind of it. And then they headed out at Friday in the morning.
And you said that you just weren't sure who they did go with?
Yeah.
What are you guys trying to do right now? What's the next step for you guys?
What we're doing right now, we're just trying to get it out there. So I'm talking to the news. We got Facebook posts. Really, that's all we can do. Hopefully, detectives will get back to us soon with new information. We had some sheriffs at the cabin yesterday, so that they didn't really give us much information, though. Like, no one was there, but we were hoping someone was there at one point and everything.
So that's kind of what you're still trying to figure out, too, is if they made it to the cabin.
Yeah. Well, yeah, apparently they did make it. I got a text on Sunday saying they did make it and that they were going to White Lake for like a parade and stuff for the 4th. But usually I think it's just more of a party there at White Lake for 4th, and Memorial Day is the parade. But White Lake is usually busy and pretty fun to go to.
When did you start to think, hey, this isn't like them, or they might be missing?
Well, I was told they'd be home Monday or Tuesday, and Tuesday afternoon I got a little worried, and then Wednesday, when my aunt went to the cabin, that's when they were I got worried and I went to make a report. My brother should be going to the cabin today just to check it out. We're just kind of keeping busy. As long as we're busy, we're not really going to overthink.
Are you staying hopeful, remaining hopeful that you're going to figure out what happened?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They could just be on a boat somewhere having a few drinks or something. No reception on boats, so, yeah.
I was just going to ask if reception wasn't very good at the cabin.
It's not during high traffic, like weekends, like the 4th, you wouldn't really get too many texts through. However, today you could call even.
It's just kind of strange because, like you said, you believe that you said that your parents texted you that they made it to the cabin.
Yeah.
On the weekend or around the 4th of July?
On Sunday.
On Sunday.
Sunday
Okay,
in the morning.
4th of July. Okay, and they left.
It was late. Like, the text could have been sent a while ago, and it just got to me on Sunday.
Okay, yeah, because of reception, that would make sense. Okay. What is something that you want people to know? Like, what can people do to help find them? Or what is there something you want people to know in the community about your parents?
I couldn't say anything specifically, just maybe get the word out that, hey, maybe tell them to call their kids so we know they're all right, or maybe send a text, an email to their work and stuff. That would be great. Other than that, get the pictures spread around. We have pictures up on Facebook and I think even on the one news source that the sheriff's put on. Once those are spread out, it should be easy to find them. There's quite a few people up north.
I ask this at the end of every interview, but is there anything more you want to mention that I didn't ask you or we didn't talk about?
I can't think of anything. I'm sorry, no.
He tells the same story. He's concerned, he's worried. He's not on camera, though. A little bit weird. Here's the second interview with Chandler, still not on camera, with another news station.
All I would really want to ask you is just if there's any information that you feel like, would be worthwhile for us to share, anything that you feel like is important for us to share, just anything like that, of that nature.
So my last message I got from them, they were going to White Lake for the 4th of July. There's some festivities that go around there, better drink prices at the bars, stuff like that for, White Lake, Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, their plan, to my knowledge, they were going to Langlade County to a cabin, their cabin. Along the way, they could have stopped many places. I wouldn't know all of them. But it's about 3 hours north of Madison, or Dane County.
And they left then a week ago today, on the 1st? Friday
morning.
So that would have been the 2nd, right, of July when they left.
Yes.
And that's the last you'd heard of them?
Yes, it is.
And then was it yesterday that you called the sheriff's office, or someone with your family called the sheriff's office just to...
I go back on that.
No,
I actually got a text from them on Sunday telling me they were going to White Lake.
Okay.
I don't know when the text was sent because of reception issues that they would have, and they usually turn their phone off because of pay for roaming.
Yeah.
It could have been whenever they sent that message that they made it safely, and they're going to White Lake for the 4th.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. So it was probably the last couple days that you started to get nervous then. Is there people, we see comments, people say, are they up north? Is the cell service bad? Could they, just not be able to get a hold of? Is there anything that you feel like is kind of going on here that leads you to be a little bit more nervous that that's not the case?
My aunt went up there and was able to call me while she was at the cabin.
Okay.
So she was able to call me. I don't know what provider she's using, but U.S. Cellular would take up most of Wisconsin, so they'd be able to call today because this weekend it was packed. I get that, packed. Maybe the weather wasn't great for messaging. So who knows.
And then the other thing I wanted to ask you about was a lot of the comments people were concerned or kind of wanted some clarification about the vehicle, right? Because the reports from the sheriff's office say they didn't have a car, or there wasn't a car with them.
They were picked up by their friends,
Okay.
who I never got the name of, and I assumed it was someone I was aware of, like the close neighbors of theirs up the street, or their best friends down on the east side. So that's what I assumed. I never really asked any further into it, and so they got picked up, and they all went up there by like another couple.
Picked up here?
Yeah, here at my house.
Okay.
Before I woke up, they had everything packed up and already
Jeez.
gone.
And you don't know who they're who?
No.
Jeez.
That's I mean that has happened before, where they just kind of head out before I leave, or I wake up. You know, I'm heavy sleep. I wake up at 6 to feed the dogs, and they were out before 6. Beat the rush to get to the north. So
Again, he pretty much maintains the exact same story every time. On the same day, July 8th, detectives connect with the White Lake Police Department. This is where the cabin is, and they send deputies out there to search. Mitchell and his fiancée meet with the detectives. I am going to show you a clip of that. I'm not going to show you all of the body cam footage. There is way too much of it. But I am going to be detailed. I'm going to tell you the things you do need to know. But here's the interaction between the police, Mitchell, and his fiancée when they arrive.
Hi there. I'm Detective Sergeant Grones with Lake County. Are you guys,
The Halderson?
You are affiliated with them?
Yes.
Okay. What's your relation?
I'm their son.
You're their son. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Yeah, it's my understanding someone from the Dane County Sheriff's Office is going to be up here soon. I don't know if you've...
They unfortunately were just called, from being informed, they were just called back, actually.
Oh,
So they will not be here.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. That's news to me, too.
Yeah, it's okay. This is actually someone from the Sheriff's Office, if you want to talk to them.
Oh, sure. Hello?
Hi, this is Detective Rich from the Dane County Sheriff's Office. I was actually just on the phone with Mitchell, telling him that unfortunately our two detectives that were going up there to meet with them, they got pulled back and they're here now. And I just found out about this and was told to give them a call and let them know. So I apologize for the miscommunication.
Okay. Sure. Yeah, I guess we'll touch base with them up here. Is there anything else that you guys would need us to do while we're out here?
At this moment, no. But I mean, if you feel like, it's worth going around with them, if they wanted to talk to neighbors or something, because they mentioned they might want to.
Sure.
But I mean, that's something you certainly don't have to do.
Okay.
So, but at this time, I'm kind of one of the peanuts kind of following orders. But
sure.
I don't think there's anything that we could have you do at this moment, but that doesn't mean it won't change.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah, if we come up with anything here through our conversation, we'll be in touch with you guys and let you know then.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you.
I don't know if you heard that, but if you listen carefully, Mitchell is explaining to the White Lake police officers that they were actually supposed to meet with Dane County police officers. However, he tells them, they had to turn around. So the White Lake police officer gets on the phone with the Dane County police officer, and you can kind of hear that exchange. So you're going to find out why this is happening, but for now, let's move on so that you can see what the place looks like. As they pull up, you can tell this place does not look like anyone has been there in quite some time. Everything is overgrown. Nobody has been mowing the lawn. And as they make their way closer to the house, I think it becomes really apparent that his parents were never there. That must be such a sinking feeling in your gut. I am not going to be showing you the entire tour of this cabin, but I will say that it did not look like anything had happened there. It didn't look lived in. There was nothing left behind. Nothing to indicate lights had been turned on or food had been there. Nothing. I feel bad because these officers are really trying to help. That's their job, but they're trying to help Mitchell figure out if his parents are anywhere around there. I can only imagine the fear that's going through him right now, realizing that his parents never made it to the cabin and wondering what happened between the time that they left and the last time anyone saw them or spoke to them. That's the mystery.
Okay.
Yeah, and that boat's always there too. And it looks like there is another second one behind it.
Oh, there. Oh, yep. You're right. There is. Okay.
Yeah, this looks pretty standard.
It's pretty normal. Okay. So I know. I guess I don't know a ton of details about everything that's gone on or going on. I guess my understanding is they're believed to be with another couple.
Someone else, at least.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know who.
Okay, I was gonna see if you knew who they were, if because we could always look and see if they own property up here in the area.
I have to assume it's someone they know and does own property up here.
Okay.
He said his brother texted him that they did make it safely to White Lake.
But they never specifically said cottage, like our cottage ever. Now that like reading back through stuff, they just said we're going up north. We made it to White Lake.
Okay.
And you said they were going to see the.
They were going for the 4th parade.
Sure. Okay.
In White Lake.
Okay. Any other, like you said, the family doesn't have any other property, but any other relatives or anything that you know of up here? Not up here. Okay.
Do you know, did they have any friends, like they might have gone to their cabin in the area? I mean, up in the forest or O'Connell? Or?
I have to assume they came up to someone else's cabin, but I don't know who. I wouldn't know anyone else with one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And you said most of their friends are still in town, back at your hometown.
Yeah, all the ones we could think of that they would come up here with.
Okay.
But I guess we were thinking they came here. I don't know anybody else that has a cabin up here.
Sure.
Even up this way, like I said, in the forest, O'Connell.
Yeah, there's a lot of backwoods lakes, and yeah. This is probably a dumb question that you've been asked, but have you tried like phone contact? Has anybody been able to get a hold of them, or? Okay. Sure. Do you know if they tried like pinging their phones at all?
Not mine, at least.
Well, your brother said at some point that he signed off the phone something,
I'm hoping
but
they can
we
do
haven't
phone
heard
records.
anything about
Sure.
them trying to get a hold of their phones.
Sure. And yeah, that's probably something they're working on like a phone ping, trying to get a location of where it's at. But and then, do you know does the family own property across the road too? I thought I had heard or saw that somewhere. That
I think so. I think they own a bit of it.
Okay.
Mom owns a bit across the street.
Just wooded though? Is it?
Yeah, there's nothing out there.
Okay.
For us. Like,
That's what it shows on the
buildings,
map.
there's no buildings out there.
Sure. Okay.
And they would prefer to stay in their cabin as opposed to coming up and sleeping on the ground, I'd assume, so they're not tent camping.
You said your dad wasn't much of a hunter or a fisher either.
He doesn't hunt, but he does fish.
Okay.
It's not like he doesn't own a boat to go fishing or anything
Yeah, he
like
doesn't
that. He
fish boats.
fishes from like.
Just.
We're gonna check out the front shed to see if those jerry can things with them.
Oh yeah, we can go and come back. His brother said that they got gas cans ready for them to go. So he said they would be by the shed if they brought them here.
Okay. That's good to know. Yeah. Before I forget too, I'll give you my card for up here. It's got my phone number, email, anything on there. I'm just trying to think of any other possibility. Like, when you were a kid, when you came up here in years past, I mean, is there anywhere else you guys would go, like up to Minocqua or Rhinelander or anywhere like that? Like if you were up here, like take a day trip somewhere?
I'm not going to know the name of it, but we would go to a candy store just for fun, but that would be about it.
Okay.
Maybe my parents would go there since they like the taffy there if they were up here. But
Okay.
It was a pretty big place, but I don't know the name of it.
Sure.
There's some big candy store up, Oneida County, isn't there?
I know there's one like downtown Minocqua.
I think it's it's a pretty big place. It's got a few different rooms that you can go around in, but it's not a chain.
Okay.
At least not that I would think.
It's like the mom and pop up north
Kind of
candy
thing.
store.
Yeah. Something like.
Your parents like go to casinos at all or anything like that? Okay.
There hasn't been any squabbling amongst the family about ownership up here, has there?
No, definitely.
Well, all of your mom's family lives on the coast. They live on the east and the west coast.
Sure.
5938.
So.
The folks didn't say anything about having problems with neighbors wanting to buy them out or anything like that.
No. Well, for us, we're here and available if there is anything that comes up. I mean, we can certainly take a drive through White Lake too and see. I mean, we're looking at quite a few days ago now since the parade, but hey, it still might be worth something.
Okay.
But you can't think of any like friends, family members, anything that hey, we're gonna go see Bob and Sue or.
Unfortunately, no.
I couldn't help but be sad when I heard him say things like they used to visit a candy store. It just shows me what their childhood was like, that their parents would go out of their way to do something fun with their kids, and that Krista and Bart loved taffy. These are the people who took care of Mitchell, who raised him, and now he's looking for them. They had to break down the front door. They had to break down the boathouse door and the shed, but it had to be done because they had to do a thorough search. Ultimately, they find nothing. The cops just told them, if you need anything, here's our number. Check in with us. We're going to go all through White Lake and look around. They've tried going through every scenario. Were they in a dispute with anyone? Could there be another cabin? Another home that they were in? Are they with other friends? It just didn't seem to make sense. The police are starting to branch out. They're interviewing anyone close to the Haldersons, including Cat. They were also following up on a number of tips, and there were some solid leads into the disappearance of Krista and Bart. Meanwhile, Chandler, on the advice of his uncle Brett Halderson, Bart's older brother that's a cop, decides to go door to door to every home in his neighborhood that was close in proximity to his house to inquire about video footage. These interactions were caught on camera, so let's take a look. The audio is bad, so if you want to look at the captions, that may help.
Hi, my name is Chandler Halderson. I live just down the road.
Oh, yeah.
You're the one who follows the police.
Yeah.
I was told you had good fancy security system. I was wondering if you were able to capture the road or my...
The police actually came and downloaded everything they have. But it's actually my sister's house.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they were here, I think till like 9 o'clock last night and downloaded all the video she's got. So we're hoping that...
Yeah, did it capture anything on...
We don't know. We don't know. They just took a copy of everything, and so we're hoping...
Wide angle lens?
Yeah, and it's all... Yeah, and it's all HD, and then I think there's one...
Especially in the dark. It looks like it has a little bit of night vision.
Yeah, and there's one on the corner of the garage, too. I don't know if that one quite goes that direction, but...
Maybe see this road and take different.
Yeah, so hopefully, I mean, we gave them everything that we had, so we're hoping they find something on there.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
Okay, that's really suspicious looking, saying, oh, a wide angle lens, night vision. I guess I may go looking at the cameras if my parents were missing, but still it just seems really unusual. The police already have the footage. Another house he went to had a Ring doorbell, but it didn't capture the conversation because the woman who lived there asked him to come inside. Essentially, the homeowner looked over the footage in front of him to see if she had anything from those nights. Chandler was there for about 18 minutes and she was questioning him. She told him that the camera had actually been off on June 30th through July 2nd. It was on July 3rd, but then it was off between the 4th and the 7th, so there wasn't much there, if anything. She starts to ask him questions, though, and he tells her that the police took a computer that day, but not Bart's, because he had a very high security job, and he said they'll never get into that computer. It's too high tech. The owner of the house says, no, I'm sure they will. She then asks about bank records and debit card records, and Chandler says, oh no, they only use cash when they travel to the cabin because none of the places around there have credit card machines. This is 2021. This is not, no, I'm sorry, this doesn't make sense. So she asked him about phone records, and Chandler said, oh no, they can't get those unless they have a dead body. The owner responded by saying that she's sure they're going to get those records. She said, don't worry. You're going to be fine. You're going to be so happy when your parents pull right into your driveway. And he's like, no, I'm not going to be happy. I'm going to give them an earful because I'm angry. We all are angry. And she tries to backtrack and explain, no, I meant it's like when your kid goes lost and for a minute you're really mad that they ran away, like at the grocery store. But when you find them, you're so happy. Chandler just looks at her and says, no, everyone's angry. The whole family's mad. Now, there's a newly retired detective that lived in the neighborhood. He knew the Haldersons, had even gone out to dinner with them once. Neighborly, nice guy, knew Chandler as well, but not that well. He just knew who he was. So Chandler shows up at his house, asking for the camera footage. The man has a new puppy, so he didn't want to open the door, but he said, oh, go ahead and meet me in the garage. Instinctually, he decides to record this conversation on his phone, and we're going to listen to that now. The captions are on the screen, just in case you can't hear it, and I may not play the whole thing. The audio is bad, so if you want to look at the captions, that may help.
Hey, I'll meet you in the garage, okay?
Okay.
I don't know if we've ever met. Well, actually, we did meet. I think we met once or twice when you first moved over there. I think we met. Sorry about what's going on.
What it is, but I was wondering if your door camera.
You do have a ring, yeah.
Does it pick up the road?
Some it does.
Would you have any notifications from Friday morning, early, before 6:15?
We can check. That's not a problem. Is that before 6:15?
Yeah, before 6:15, kind of since Thursday midnight. Any notifications?
Okay. My wife is the one that knows how to run that, so I'll have her pull it up on the computer. So Thursday night to Friday morning.
Yeah.
Okay. You doing okay over there? Anything I can do to help you out? Do you need help watching the dogs or anything?
Yeah, it's gonna be hard to leave my dogs with people.
If there's anything I can do to make your life easier, I'll give you my phone number. You can call me. Okay, ready? My name is Kevin. We're a Kamar. But if there's anything I can do, I'm from where your dad is from the Valders area. Mm-hmm. I grew up in that area.
Oh, okay.
He's 3 years younger than me, but we went to the same high school. How's your dad's family or Krista's family doing?
I haven't heard anything from my mom's family. They're kind of spread across the map. So
do they know what's going on though?
No, I haven't talked to them before.
Okay.
I wouldn't know how to contact them. Okay. My brother might know how to contact her brother. So I think he's met her.
No?
Yeah, I'm hoping Brett can come because he'll be able to look through more things than the police are.
Yeah. Well, when Brett comes up here, if he comes up here, have him come over here. I mean, if there's anything I can do to help out with anything. I mean, I was a detective for 23 years with Madison Police Department, so I work, that kind of stuff. I know Brett was a manager. He was a boss, but he should have a lot of experience. But and if you have Brett's phone number, I could easily call him up. If you want to give me Brett's phone number, I'll give him a phone call and just, and actually, I think you text that to me also. Yeah, send it to me. I've always wanted to meet him because I know he was a police officer for many years, and I don't even know if he knows who I am. But when I met, your dad and Krista, he told me that Brett was a cop, and I knew that. He was in the military or something too. I remember.
Yeah, he was in the Army.
Yeah, I remember that also. But I'll have Lisa check the ring. I know the cops one of them came over and talked over here a little bit yesterday and asked if we saw anything, and it's like, no, not much. So.
It's too early. I haven't seen anyone up around that time anyways.
Do you, I read in the news release where the cabin is. What's
Sawyer Lake?
Sawyer Lake. Is that a cabin? A cabin. And they checked the cabin already up there?
I haven't heard what
I would
they found.
I would hope they have the cops up there knocking on the door, checking in.
One of the 3 cops for the entire,
No, that's what I don't even know where Sawyer County is actually.
It's not Sawyer County, it's just Sawyer Lake.
Sawyer Lake, okay, I've heard. Okay.
County.
Langley, is that what it is?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I heard of Langley, never went to get past Green Bay, I don't know much, so. But, I'll have Lisa check, I'll text you once she checks the ring, so Thursday night into Friday morning.
Yeah.
Okay. And you keep me in mind for everything I'm telling you, if there's anything we can do to make your life easier, you need to reach out to us, okay?
I appreciate it.
Okay, what's your name again?
Chandler.
Chandler, okay. And do you have one brother?
Yeah.
I was going to say, when your parents moved in there, I remember meeting 2 boys. Okay, what's your brother's name?
Mitchell.
Okay. How long have you been over there for?
5 years since I graduated high school and we moved just the summer after.
Call me though if you need anything, okay?
Appreciate it.
Okay. Okay.
If you could think of anything, give me a ring, or if you find me just from my law enforcement background, the best thing you can be doing is being in constant contact with the detective that's assigned to the case. If I was you, I would be lighting this phone up, what's going on, where are things at, just being in constant contact. They're gonna, if they're doing their job the way I would be doing it, they already reached out wherever the Sawyer Lake is. They would have had the cops check in the area. Did you give them the address where the cabin was? Okay. I can assure you that they're doing what they can on their end, but I would be calling that cop up, 2-3 times a day, saying, hey, what's going on, or encouraging the cop to call you 2-3 times a day until, this is figured out. I'm not a big social media person at all, don't know much about it, but were your parents big in social media? Oh,
okay.
It's not helping finding him.
Okay, so. When was your, and your parents' workplaces have been contacted already?
Yep.
Okay.
I tried to contact my dad's, but his place is so locked down, it's hard to even talk to a real person.
No, and as long as the officers know where your parents work?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're doing trust me, they're doing what their jobs are, so that should all be covered. And then I would, just stay in contact with the cops. They're gonna probably ask for more information. If they have questions from you, answer the questions. Be in whatever you can do of assistance. Is your other brother, is it your older brother? Mm-hmm. Has he been, the officers talked to him?
Yeah, they went to his house.
Okay, that's good. That's really good. Does Krista have any relatives around here? No.
Just my dad. And I've contacted his side, aunt and uncle, his brother, his nieces.
Okay, good.
My grandparents, I'm pretty sure they're in the loop now too, but they haven't heard anything.
Sure.
So.
Okay. Just work with the detective as much as possible. Do you know who the detective is assigned?
It's on a card in my dining room.
Once you call them, ask them, are you the detective assigned, or do you mind if I continue calling you for updates? All you can do is wait, pray, hope for the best. Has this ever happened before? Anything like
Not like this long of not hearing from them. That's why I went to the police. So.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you did. I'm really glad you did.
So, yeah.
I'm really glad you did. Did the police ask you, do they have passports? Did they ever travel
I don't
out of the
know
country?
if they have passports with them. I can't get in our safe. I don't have the codes for safes.
Okay.
And that's where we keep them, is
safe. That's the stuff that they're going to check. And the cops have a way of checking to see if they got on airplanes. There's a way of them doing that. So there's things they can be doing on their end that I'm sure they are, because that's what they do. Okay?
I appreciate it.
Good luck. I'll drop you a text once my wife looks at the ring, okay?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Wow. I have nothing else to say right now except this.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
Something ain't right. We have instincts. If someone or something doesn't seem right, we know. Police were able to grab the footage from a neighbor, which showed the Haldersons' driveway. It had 7 whole days worth of footage of cars coming and going. And I'm just going to show you an example of this clip. I am not going to go through all those days. But to understand this, the top version is the neighbor's driveway where the camera was located. The bottom version is enhanced and it's blown up so you can see the portion of the camera footage that shows the Haldersons' driveway right here. On the screen right now, you will see text indicating what car and whether it was coming or going, as well as the time. In this example, that Volvo was Krista departing for work in the morning, and then at 5:13 p.m., she comes back from work. This was the last time that anyone saw her at work, July 1st. And they see everything. They see Dan coming to talk to Chandler. They see Cat coming the night of the 2nd around 7:30. She's got Target bags. Here she is. They know how many times and what car and who's driving it for the most part. It even shows that on July 5th at 8 a.m., Chandler rolls a trash bin down the driveway. There's even one morning, July 6th, that Chandler leaves at 4:30 a.m. and comes back at 5:30. But you know what's not captured? Any vehicles arriving or departing on the early morning of July 2nd to pick up Krista and Bart. Were they just out of the range of the camera or what? This is helpful to correlate who left and came back and what time and where witnesses may have spotted anyone from the Haldersons' household around town or elsewhere. If you think this is valuable evidence, just wait. There is unbelievable camera footage that catches something so significant that I think it's probably the most compelling evidence, at least for me, because it connected so many dots. And that's not going to be in this video, but just wait. Don't look up this case either. I want you to hear every detail because this is a new case. I'm sure you can find it somewhere. After this talk, he decides to do what the retired detective said, and he contacted the officer on the case to check in, and we have that recording.
A little confused. I got 2 squads parked right outside my house, and they're not really canvassing. They're just kind of sitting there. Is everything all right?
Yeah, I mean, they're in the area doing canvassing, and they're also probably doing a shift change right now, getting our second shift crew on around 3:30.
Oh, there's 4 now. Something going on that we need to know?
Well, they're probably doing reports. They're probably doing shift change. You know, they've been going around trying to get a hold of neighbors, so I'm wondering if they're in the area trying to catch people now that they're coming home from work. I'm not sure. I haven't talked to any of them in just a little while.
All right. Well, any news? My brother, I haven't heard from him.
No, as far as I know, they're still on their way up north. A couple-hour drive, so he's probably halfway into it, right?
Yeah, I suppose about.
Yeah. Any news on your end at all? Have you gotten any phone calls, text messages?
Gotten any messages other than from concerned parents.
Okay.
I can't, there's no mail. There's a hold on my mail.
Okay.
Is that normal? Are you guys getting it at least?
No, we don't put a hold on people's mail. I've never heard of that happening before.
There's a hold on my mail. There's a ticket in there. All mail held at the station is what it says.
Okay. Yeah, nothing done by us, that's for sure.
Because I'm going to need my medical bills.
Yeah. No, we wouldn't put a hold on people's mail, and typically only the people that live at the address can do that. Did your parents put a hold on the mail? Does it say who put the hold on the mail?
I can go check, I suppose.
Okay.
Do you know of anything? So, I don't know. It's kind of stressful. Sorry, so there's nothing new going on?
Not that I'm aware of.
Alright.
Yeah. Who's there? Are you at home still right now, obviously? Because you're saying they're outside. Who's there with you?
Yeah, no, they're not with me. They're just 4 squads just parked outside.
Okay. Who was just talking in the background, Cat?
Yeah, Cat's over with me.
Oh, okay. Okay. No, I mean, I can definitely give you a call or message you, I guess, depending. What time are you planning on going to dinner?
Not sure, but
Okay.
pretty soon here.
Is it cool to call you?
Hoping to hear from. What was that?
Is it cool to call you while you're at dinner? Okay.
Anytime.
Okay. Well, I'll keep you posted if I hear anything. I mean, obviously with the mail, that has nothing to do with us at all. I've never heard of a detective or law enforcement agency holding somebody's mail. you know, and then as far as everybody in the area, you know, you kind of had to figure we were going to be in the area all day today.
Yeah, I was just wondering why there were 4 cars instead of the canvassing.
Yeah.
Any news about that blue house with the big cameras?
The blue house with the big cameras. Is that the one across the street?
Yeah, across the street, kind of in the corner. It's a newer house.
I haven't talked to...
I stopped by their house.
Yeah, I have a detective that's getting footage from the area. I don't know exactly which houses he's gotten video from yet. But yeah,
it sounds like they downloaded all of it and already have it at IT.
Oh, okay. So he's probably reviewing it now.
Okay.
Yeah, it takes time to go through those things. You figure you can only fast forward so much.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll give you a holler if anything pops up. You know, and I'll give a call around and just kind of get a briefing from people up in the area.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Okay. Thanks, Chandler.
Thank you.
Bye.
The police worked on this case all night, followed up on every tip on July 7th, and so on July 8th, they wanted to now have a formal interview with Chandler down at the station. Both Cat and Chandler were picked up and driven downtown in separate squad cars. They were put into 2 different rooms and interviewed by detectives. I have the interview with Chandler. However, I'm stopping this video now and we will pick up on part 2. I'm going to be editing this as fast as I possibly can and getting that part out as fast as I possibly can. I didn't want to do this, but the interview is probably an hour long by itself. This has been a lot to take in, a lot of details. Please don't look the case up. I know it's very tempting. I want you to stay with me and hear it with all the details, because when you figure out all the connections, it's probably going to be the craziest modern case that's happening now or happened now that you've heard. Take it from me. I've read a lot of crazy stuff. And when it's ready, it'll be linked up here. It'll be linked in my description box below, and it will be linked at the end of this video somewhere on the screen. I will make sure to keep the titles the same and put part 1, part 2, hopefully not 3, but you get the picture. So thank you all so very much for watching. Thank you so much to Fetch for sponsoring this video, because I am in desperate need for support on this channel. And I thank you so very much for being here with me and watching my videos. All right, I will see you in my next one. Bye.